Today's thing fills me with a certain amount of joy because this is a blaster I've had in my possession for way too long now, and I've never uploaded a video on it. I've shot videos, but I've never uploaded them. Such is the curse of YouTubing. But I want to talk about today's thing. Why? Because it does this. And quite frankly, I'm a little bit burnt out of reviewing things, even though today's thing could be a review. Even though I don't think you can buy it anymore. I have no idea. I haven't talked to the person who built this in over a year. Sorry. Not gonna lie, I feel a little bit targeted by this ad, and it's coming at the perfect time, I would feel, but we have to get a little bit personal because I stand in front of you as a failure. Many of you like to point out, whether out of genuine concern or sarcasm, that a little over a year ago, I was almost a completely different person. I had hopped on a fad diet and I stuck with it for a long time and I lost a lot of weight. But with the move to the studio, doing all this kind of stuff, and all of the things that happened during that time, and trust me, it's been pretty hectic, well, you see the results. I'm pretty much where I was before, if not substantially worse. And that's because those fad diets, they just don't really work out. Yeah, you may lose a bunch of weight, but the difference is that you're not understanding what's going on with your eating habits and your exercise habits, and that will most likely lead to your downfall. But that's where today's sponsor Noom comes in, because weight loss isn't always as easy as just counting calories and getting the exercise in. And Noom attacks this from both a human and a scientific perspective. Noom helps you understand how your mind works and helps you try to get to the why behind the decisions you are making. Using proven psychology and cognitive behavioral therapy techniques, Noom aims to arm you with the wisdom and guidance you need to practice making more thoughtful choices every day in order to make substantial changes. Noom gives you all of this on top of giving you the tools to help you along your journey. For example, food and exercise trackers, meal planning, which will help you pick out what you're going to eat for dinner every single night, and of course, real people to talk to about your weight loss journey. Actual coaches that will help you make steps to bettering yourself. All these things and so much more crammed together is what makes Noom such an interesting experience. Having the will to do something is one thing, but fundamentally understanding why you make the decisions you make and having all the tools in one easy to access place is how you increase your odds of succeeding. Use the link on screen or check out the link in the description below to start your own Noom free trial. That's noom.com/Walcom S7. And together, and I mean that genuinely, if you're in the same boat I am, well, I guess this ad is our call to action. It seems kind of insane to me, but that's what's going on. And hopefully together, along with Noom, will we be able to make some actual substantial changes to making ourselves healthier. I did it once before, and I'm not ashamed to admit that I failed and that I'm willing to try again. So thank you very much to Noom for sponsoring this video. And please, again, check out noom.com/Walcom S7 to start your free trial today. Did you know this is only the second blaster on the channel, I believe, that's ever actually fired from a solenoid? Yet solenoids are so freaking awesome, I kind of wish they were in all of the things. This is the Kreekut. Kreekut? The first time I pronounced this thing, I was told I pronounced it wrong. So I'm just going with Kreekut because that's what it says on the side of the blaster in what may be Comic Sans. I'm not entirely up to date on my fonts, but this blaster is a solenoid-powered, double magazine-fed. You can just kind of go like that, then like that. Arm-mounted, well, it shoots multiple projectiles, so can we technically classify this as a magazine-fed shotgun? Mags, fed, shoots multiple projectiles. This blaster was built by 45 Mags Customs, well, you've probably seen some of their other work floating around the internet. I know OutOfDart did a video on one of their other blasters, which I desperately want two of, but I'm kind of hoping for it to get a little bit more fleshed out before I pull the trigger on something that expensive. This was their prototype leading to that, or it's a separate blaster, but there's really not a whole lot else like this in our entire ecosystem. Without the magazines in it, it's a lot more compact than you have this big joystick sitting on the top of it, which we'll talk about. But of course, the most important thing is this is solenoid power and it shoots both darts at the same time. It's actually got a pin that protrudes through the side here, and I don't know how many of these things are out there. I bought, like, literally the one the guy was showing off in Facebook posts, because I wanted it that badly. In fact, at the moment, I don't remember how much I even paid for it, which may be a good thing. Put our LiPo in there, a 3S LiPo, and the other interesting fact about this blaster is that it actually uses those micro-flywheels. We've talked about them a little bit in the past and a little bit more recently, but they are small diameter flywheels that kind of have a maximum FPS cap of like 130, which is perfect for HVZ. I do have a dual stage one, which will hit a little over 150, but it's more of the lower end kind of things when it comes to flywheelers, but they are also very compact, which means you can build stuff like this. And that also means it's loud, and it also means it has 4 of them. It is single staged on each side, and yet it will fire 2 darts with 1 trigger pull from 1 solenoid. The solenoid actually has 2 pushers on it, and it just equally pushes out the darts. I forgot how much I loved this thing. It's not the most comfortable blaster in the world. I don't really think it was meant to be the most powerful blaster in the world, and it is definitely goofy, but it does work. My main problem with this blaster, besides the fact that it's an arm-mounted 3D printed thing that I'm always worried about slapping against something accidentally and breaking it in half, is the grip. The grip is clearly designed off of some kind of aircraft flight stick. And it is super cool, but these things that look like buttons on it don't actually do anything, although you could definitely make them work like buttons, but the way it works is similar to how the actual firing on an aircraft works. The trigger is the rev, and the button on the top that you hit with your thumb is actually how you fire the thing, which is backwards from what I would like. But I'm not an airman. I just know based off of all the games I've ever played on the computer with the flight stick. There is nothing in this blaster preventing you from pulling the trigger when the blaster isn't revved. So I just chunked foam darts into the flywheels and hopefully, yeah, give it a very quick burst right there. It thankfully does not seem to ever actually stall motors when you do that, but somebody who doesn't know could very easily maybe break something, so that's something to be worried about, but it limits your rate of fire, and a lot of you may want something like this to be full auto, but the thing with this, unless it was select fire, which has plenty of buttons to do that with, you just need to put a brain board and switches, and that's something that I do believe was talked about with this blaster, is that this thing is so goofy, but yet it is entirely practical if you want to run it. Now, obviously, FPS caps for something like this, since it hits about 130, probably a maximum of about 150 is when you'd want to use something like this, but it is very short when it comes to the actual length of the blaster. It barely fits out past my fist. Dual wield with this with something in your other hand, presumably another flywheel blaster, you can do that, and then have this as a backup, or have 2 of these things, which kinda was my original plan. 2 darts at once does mean that you're gonna burn through your ammo twice as quick, but that also increases your odds of hitting somebody with the first trigger pull pretty much every time, which makes the Kreekut here just something that I absolutely could not live without. It is a beautifully printed and assembled blaster with big, thick hardware all over it, a tactical rail on the bottom, which I don't even know really what you'd put there, besides maybe like a Proud Papa or something? I have no clue. And yes, it does work with your left hand, although you do have this bump pressing, which is actually a good or a bad thing, because it's a little bit more something to grab onto, I feel. But that, I really want to reverse those 2 triggers. I feel like that's something I have to do sooner than later. There is no magazine release because it's kind of meant to be operated in swapped mags with your other hand. So it's literally just some 3D printed plastic that acts a little bit like a spring. It's an incredibly simple mechanism that works extremely well. And, well, these are 15, 17, 18 rounders. You can do the full, what I feel like is more like a Diablos from Monster Hunter, but that's this is a thing. 33, I think, darts per mag. I guess. And of course, if you want to, it does work with only 1 magazine, although both sets of flywheels will still spin up, and the pusher will still try to push 2 darts into those flywheels. God, I love you. Is it the most accurate blaster ever? No, it's not supposed to. It fires 2 darts at once through flywheels, but it's kind of useful enough that you would consider using something like this. It is technically usable in like an HVZ, although I don't know if I'd necessarily want to run around with something like this. That is a danger of goring myself, let alone somebody next to me. So, at least not with these magazines in it. Some changes I would like to see on something like this, if it was to keep the same exact kind of idea that's going on here. This grip, as cute as it is, and I understand why it was done, doesn't work for me at all. It really just gets in the way. It doesn't feel all that comfortable. I can't really get behind this grip. That's something I wish was changed into maybe something that was a bit more ergonomic and a bit more ambidextrous, because everything else on the blaster practically is. And if anything, I wish this was the rev like every other blaster that I have, you know, Prometheus, Titan, so forth, and this was the firing trigger, because that's a lot more intuitive to me. And of course, if this form factor isn't quite your thing and you want something that's more standard, well, check out OutOfDart's video. I have linked in the top right corner. That will show you the
Chelicerae.
I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. OutOfDart's does pronounce it in the video, but I completely forgot. But it's basically like a pistol version of this, where the magazines actually work how you'd expect them to, which is super cool. And this is just another example of something that I think is completely viable in its ecosystem that isn't a traditional design. The lower that FPS cap gets, the more things that are viable, the more wacky designs you see. And this is one of my favorites. It just scratches that itch of flinging foam in a completely different, random way. But that's all I've got for you. I'm Walcom S7. Thank you very much for watching this video. Chances are, if you got to the end, you like what I do here, so please hit like, get subscribed, ring the bell, do all that algorithmic garbage, help the channel grow, so get out the hobby grow. And of course, I'll see you in an entirely different video. Which is probably just gonna be me reviewing more things. I'm sorry, wallets.
You gotta up,